performing with a cut of close to under percent. So it was that sort of day, Surabhi, where the large cap names did well, but the mid and the small cap index, I'll not say this party is over, but maybe in fact they stop for breath, pause a little bit, cool off a little bit, and maybe restart the journey.
Absolutely, which is always a good thing. Nothing wrong with a bit of a pause, right? And that's what we got today, and slightly mixed trends coming in. So the range on the Nifty was about 130 points. But the bulls managed a recovery from the lows, and that's thanks to a lot of the movement in the tech stocks that Nigel was referring to. So by the end of it, we were closer to 22,200 once again on the index. TCS was actually leading that move on the tech side of things. Banks weren't very clear. There was no clarity on the larger move on the banking index. You had some banking names on the private sector side, like an IndusInd Bank, that were doing well, but you had the PSU Bank starting with Big Daddy SBI that was sulking today. So bank trends were mixed. There was some good buying in auto and in pharma. So those trends kind of stood out. But all in all, I mean, it was a choppy day of trade with a lot of the mid caps cooling off. Quite a few of the PSU stocks as well were cooling off after the recent run-up. In terms of international markets, there's been a bit of a pause on Wall Street as well after the mega tech rally post NVIDIA's numbers. And the next big event from the data perspective is going to be when we get the consumption, or rather the inflation numbers, consumer inflation numbers. That's on Thursday on Wall Street. So till then, it's been a bit of a wait and watch around global markets as well. Let's get started. There's plenty to cover on the show, so let's bring you the lineup. Here's what we have for you. We'll start off with giving you some more color on the top movers and shakers of the day. So Vivek will be looking at those stocks very, very closely. The stocks of the day include ICICI Lombard, BEML, Havells and Dixon Tech. And we'll tell you why we've picked these four for you as we go along. Then, of course, we have our popular segment, D Street Chatter, coming up. Nimesh specifically is looking at L&T Finance, and he'll tell us why that's in sharp focus today. And, of course, then we cap it off with all the major events to watch out for tomorrow. First up, let's head to Vivek for all the movers and shakers. Vivek.
Well, thank you so much for that. Like you mentioned today, one pack that actually outperformed was the tech pack. And tech pack, given the fact that TCS has one of the highest weightages as far as the entire IT index is concerned, ended as one of the top gainers within the Nifty. So TCS, on the back of the upgrade from UBS that came in, that particular stock ended higher by over 2.5%. The second stock, one that we'll be discussing further too, is ICICI Lombard. So ICICI Bank further pared its stake, and the overhang of Bharti Enterprises stake sale is likely now over as well. The third stock, again on the back of a brokerage upgrade, was Havells India. Now this particular stock, continued its up move, ended higher by almost 3% higher, and Goldman Sachs continues to remain quite positive as far as Havells is concerned. The fourth stock, Cello World, something we discussed in the morning. Motilal Oswal initiated coverage. They believe that this stock has significant potential, and the target price of 1100 is what they've ascribed to Cello World. Stock ended higher by over 4%. And within the gaining pack, the last stock was Happiest Mind. The announcement came during the middle of Archetaz. The company is going ahead and reorganizing the entire vertical structure, and on the back of that, the stock ended higher by over 4.5%. But quite a few stocks saw selling pressure as well. The first stock, of course, was Dixon. You actually saw a downgrade coming in from Jefferies, overstretched valuations, as well as post a very sharp run-up. They went ahead and downgraded the stock. The second stock, that will be on everybody's mind is Vodafone Idea. Today, just ahead of the board meet, the stock ended lower quite significantly, but all eyes on this particular name, as the outcome of the fundraising board meet is upon us. And lastly, Shriram Finance, very, very volatile stock in today's trading session, ended lower by over 4.5%. Remember, now this particular stock is a candidate to go ahead and replace UPL once, the Nifty rejig, actually comes into effect. So a lot of volatility over there, but we remain, and we need to see if there is any clarity that emerges, especially if NSE go ahead and decides to include the stock in the Nifty 50 index.
Okay, all right, got that, Vivek. Thank you very much for all of that action. Let's now quickly move on and talk about the guests that are joining us on the show today. We have Sudip Bandyopadhyay, Group Chairman at Inditrade Capital, along with Jay Bala of Cash the Chaos. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being with us. Just a quick word. Let's get your view, Sudip, first on the market as a whole. We're in a bit of a wait-and-watch zone after the big move. What sense from here on? Would you still be putting in incremental money to work, or are you waiting for that bigger correction as well?
Well, Subi, I don't believe there is a bigger correction in the offing. I think, we are in a phase where there's a bit of consolidation happening. And, if you're looking at a long term, I think this consolidation at an elevated level after the massive rally we have seen over the last few months, I think is a good thing to happen. Some amount of froth is going out, profit booking is happening, and some rotation is definitely happening. So our view is that things will keep moving up. There's a consolidation phase, but nearer when the election gets declared and all that, we may get a pre-election rally as well. And also we are expecting a post-election rally, assuming what the market is expecting does happen. I think we will see a post-election rally. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm not looking at a sharp correction or anything like that. A couple of things also I must mention here is that FIIs, a lot of FIIs are tactically putting money in China because the valuations are cheap. But structurally, I think everybody is positive on India, and money will and definitely should flow into India from FIIs as well. Right now, they are focused on buying Indian debt, but at some stage, that pool of money rather, will also start flowing in, and that should take the market to higher levels.
Okay, all right, got that, Sudip. Thanks a lot for that. Well, let's get in Jay. Jay, I wanted to ask you particularly about the Nifty Bank. Just a few sessions ago, it looked like it's ready to go ahead and conquer that 47,500 mark. And I think for 4-5 straight sessions, it went to 47,100, 47,200, 47,300, but it's not able to take out the final hurdle. How do you see the Nifty Bank pan out from here? I think, if you pull up a technical chart, it's broken the 50 DMA a little bit, just below that. And the 20 DMA is around 500 points away from current levels. So your take?
Yeah, it's not just on the upside, Nigel, it's also on the downside. And as long as the January lows are protected, I think the markets can remain sideways. But, the overall medium-term picture is negative for the banking index. But within that medium-term picture, let's say from here to next Monday, the banking index doesn't drop below 44,000. You can still push towards fresh, year high closer to 49,000, 50,000. But it's more weak than strength, and that doesn't impact the medium-term picture. The medium-term picture is that the banking index is due for a very sharp correction. It's just a matter of time when it starts. More likely that it starts immediately rather than go to fresh all-time high.
Okay, fair enough. Let's move on and get to some of those stocks that have been in focus today. One of them is ICICI Lombard, which rallied over 4% on the back of a large trade that took place. 1.4% equity changed hands. And we learned from sources that ICICI Bank is probably the buyer and Bharti Enterprises could be the likely seller. Yash has more details. Yash?
Well, Surabhi, this particular large trade in ICICI Lombard was in the offing for about 6 months or so. Got executed today where about 1.4% stake in ICICI Lombard changed hands. Now, as per our sources, what we learn is that ICICI Bank was the buyer as far as this particular block deal is concerned. Bharti Enterprises, on the other hand, was the seller in this particular block deal. Now, if we speak about, where does the stake move from both these entities post this block deal, then in that case, Bharti Enterprises' stake in ICICI Lombard is likely to reduce to 2.3% from 3.7%. ICICI Bank's stake, on the other hand, in ICICI Lombard is expected to increase to 49.31% from the current 47.91%. Remember, ICICI Bank had received the insurance regulator IRDAI's approval to raise this stake in September 2023, got executed today. Now, two important things to look forward to as far as this transaction is concerned. ICICI Bank had the approval to raise its stake by another 4%. 1.4% gotten executed today, which means they still have about 2.5% to acquire. Out of that 2.5%, 1.1% is to be acquired before August 2024 itself. So, of course, ICICI Bank will have both options, either to acquire that 1.1% stake from the market directly or to again reach out to Bharti to acquire that 1.1% stake. Bharti also has about 2.3% stake. The intention is to exit ICICI Lombard completely from their side as well.
Okay, all right. Thanks a lot for that, Yash. Well, let's move to the second stock of the day then. Was BEML. The shares zoomed close to 10%. The company is confident of achieving its target of 20% revenue growth in FY24. The CMD, Mr. Shantanu Roy, also added the order book is robust, so the focus now is on execution and fixing the supply chain issues. The company aims to achieve margins of around 12 to around 14%. Let's hear him out.
The quarter four has always been much better as compared to the first 3 quarters. So first quarter generally %, second quarter is 20%, third quarter is 30%, and fourth quarter is 40 to 45%. Sometimes we have done 50% also. So I'm looking at something around 45%. So yes, that 20% growth is still possible. I can see it. Yes, there are certain headwinds, especially with regard to the supply chain, with regard to the geopolitical situation, but we are hopeful that we'll overcome all that. The current order book is around 12,300 crores. The inflow this year has been around 6,600 crores, out of which Rail Metro has contributed around 58%. Defense has contributed around 25%, and mining has contributed around 17%. The EBITDA margin of 12 to 14%, I consider it very excellent EBITDA margins.
Okay, let me take that question to both our guests very quickly. BEML, I mean, it's been a part of that whole PSU rally. On fundamentals, Sudip, would you still buy the stock?
I'm a little cautious, Sudhir. I think some of these stocks have run up quite a bit. And at these elevated valuations, as I think was rightly mentioned, the execution becomes the key. And unfortunately, some of these guys don't have an excellent track record of execution. And we'll have to wait and watch how execution happens. There's absolutely no doubt that they have, the order book, which we have never ever seen, that kind of order book, which can very well yield significant dividends for them, assuming they execute it properly and well in time and at a reasonable cost. But we'll have to wait and watch. Amongst these, companies, I think we like Bharat Electronics, because apart from everything else and a heavy order book, they are in a sector which is the focus of the government, defense electronics. And, the performance-wise, they have been performing very well on a continuous basis. Couple of quarters, we have seen a bit of a problem in execution, but I think, the company has the strength and ability to overcome that. So if I have to pick up one of these, engineering or PSUs, I think I'll go for BEL.
Okay, and Jay, on the charts, do you see any more juice left in the rally on BEML specifically?
Well, definitely, Sudip. The price structure is an incomplete move. The recent high of about 44,000 and change looks like, it's got higher highs to come through. And as long as the stock can protect 2,600, the stock is going up to fresh all-time highs. And it's bullish on weekly and monthly. I know we had suggested BEL a few weeks back, and I think February 6th on, the closing hours, and it's gone to record highs. BEML looks like BEL with a drag, so it's probably got higher highs to come through.
Got it. Okay, all right, got that. For BEML, the reason that the stock was so excited is in the first 9 months they've done around 2,500 crores, and going by the run rate that he's saying that in Q4 itself we'll do 2,200 crores. So so they're going to do closer around 80% plus of what they did the entire in a single quarter, because Q4 was so strong. Explains why the stock flew away in trade today. Well, let's shift focus to some brokerage commentary. Havells gained in trade on the back of an upgrade coming in from Goldman Sachs. TCS was the top gain on the back of a note coming in from UBS, while Dixon was under pressure after a downgrade from Jefferies. Nimesh joins us to fill us in with a quick glance through all those notes. Nimesh?
Thanks, Nigel. So all the three stocks that you mentioned did react to the brokerage notes. I'll start with Havells first. A big upgrade coming in from Goldman Sachs. So they've upgraded the stock to buy with a target price of 1660. Now they believe that while it's difficult to time the inflection point for Havells, but in terms of growth, they see a good revenue growth going forward. And also the company is doing enough cost-cutting measures to improve the margins. But going forward, couple of triggers for Havells. One, they expect return of double-digit revenue growth from Q4 for Havells. And also, the Lloyd's brand can improve the margins, so the overall profitability can improve. So that was the reason why they upgraded Havells to a buy today. The second was on TCS. Interesting upgrade from UBS today. After a long time, some upgrade coming in an IT name. TCS got upgraded to buy with a target price of 4,700. Now, UBS believes that TCS is likely to outperform the peers in terms of revenue growth by 100 to 150 basis points and also improve the margins in FY25. And this is not priced in at the current levels, and hence a big upgrade on that stock as well. And the last is on Dixon. The stock ended at day's low and there was selling pressure as well. But Jefferies should have downgraded the stock to an underperform with a target price of 59.20 there. Now they believe that the stock has already run up 150% Y2D and now trades at close to 73 times on FY25 estimates. So expensive stock and has done well, and hence a downgrade on Dixon, and that led to a pressure on that stock today.
Okay, got that. Thanks very much, Nimesh. So lots of brokerage notes moving stocks today. Sudip, let me toss these to you. Would you want to share a quick comment on anyone, Havells, Dixon, or even a TCS?
Well, I think, as far as Dixon's is concerned, this entire space has become extremely competitive, and the valuations at which some of these players were quoting was looking really, really rich. Some amount of time correction, at least, is definitely warranted. And I think this brokerage report is ensuring that market realizes that, and that's pretty much what is happening. As far as Havells is concerned, I think, we are waiting for a very long time for the Lloyd's portfolio to pick up and deliver for Havells, which hasn't been happening. And if that does actually start delivering, I think the good time for Havells. Between Havells and the other competitors, we do like a polycap. Havells we are watching because Lloyds haven't been able to deliver. We have been still watching for them to deliver.
Okay, all right, gentlemen. Thanks a lot for joining in. Sudip as well as Jay for joining us on the show and giving us your view on the index as well as a whole host of stocks. Well, let's get you some big corporate voices of the day. Whirlpool India rallied in trade. Last week, Whirlpool's promoter entity, they sold 24% in a block trade, bringing their stake down to 51% in the India unit. Now, speaking to CNBC, Whirlpool Corporation's CEO, Mark Bitzer, said that the higher valuation is the main reason behind the India stake sale. He also added that they are bullish on the business growth prospects in India.
Meanwhile, DLF Managing Director Ashok Tyagi told us that the demand for mid-range premium and luxury housing remains very strong. He says that the company is looking forward to at least 2 major launches in Gurgaon, a launch of a villa property in Goa, and several other projects in Chandigarh, as well as their maiden launch in Mumbai. That will take place by the second quarter of FY25. He says that pricing trends are looking good, and the total launch pipeline for the new year, new fiscal, is going to be over 30,000 crore rupees. And with that, it's time for a quick break. We'll come back on the other side and get you our popular segment, D Street Chatter with Nimesh, and also all the events to watch out for tomorrow. Well, it's now time for our favorite segment, D Street Chatter. We have Nimesh joining in with all the insights that are coming in from dealing rooms today. Nimesh, so over to you. What's the buzz? Very range-bound session, but what was the overall sense like?
Well, range-bound, but a bit of resilience despite negative flows from the larger FIs. So numbers will be quite interesting from an institutional point of view. But in terms of individual names, a lot of stocks are buzzing in trade. The first is Dixon Technologies. We spoke about the Jefferies downgrade, but there were sell flows as well. So expect high delivery volumes, and there is looks like some FI seems to be seller in Dixon at these levels. So that's the first name. Second is the two OMC names, IOC and BPCL. Well, the stocks have corrected more than 10% from the recent highs. Looks like some bit of small buying interest is back from the large institutions. While the stocks were down, there is some bit of buying interest in these two names from larger FIs. The third name is L&T Finance. Now, within the NBFCs, this stock is relatively outperformed in the last many days, and I understand some bit of accumulation is happening from long-only funds in L&T Finance of late, so that explains a bit of outperformance there. And the last name is BLS International. While the mid-cap overall were under pressure today, BLS stands out and outperformed largely on back of strong flows at HNIs. So it looks like some larger HNIs are quite active buyers in BLS International at these levels.
Oh, interesting. Thanks a lot for that, Nimesh. Well, before we wrap up, let's bring you some key market events you need to track. Mangalam's here with that list. Mangalam?
Well, post the earnings season, we have the conference season, and a lot of conferences are on. So a lot of companies presenting in these investor conferences. So we'll watch out for those. We have Natco Pharma, Go Fashion, GMM Pfaudler, CSE, among some who are, presenting at conferences. For Welspun Ent, there is the Investor Day tomorrow. So they will be speaking to analysts, talking about the way forward for the company. So we'll get in some data from there as well. Some small companies still reporting their earnings. We have Jindal Stainless Hisar, which will be reporting their third quarter earnings. But more importantly, the stock we'll be watching out for tomorrow, or the group of stocks we'll be watching out for tomorrow, would be Vodafone Idea, and as a result of which Indus Tower, because there will be the outcome of the fundraise meet that will play out today itself. The other big events that are underway, which are industrial events, one is the Mobile World Conference, the other is the BioAsia Summit. So we'll keep getting you commentary from managements at both these places. And finally, tomorrow is a Wednesday, but do not trade Nifty Bank for an expiry tomorrow, because remember, this is the last week of a month, which means that on that day, both the Nifty and the Nifty Bank expiry happens on Thursday itself. So just thought I'd put that on the table.
Okay, all right, Mangalam, thanks for that reminder. Important one there with respect to the expiry as well. And with that, it's curtains on this edition of Markets Forward. Thank you very much for being with us. Of course, we'll be back with more news and updates right after this short break.
Good evening. Thanks very much for joining us on Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines that we're tracking for you this evening. Indian equities see a choppy but range-bound session on the back of weak global cues and rising crude oil prices. The sensex and the Nifty end with modest gains, but the mid-cap index fails to add to Monday's levels. Four investors in edtech startup Byju's moved the National Company Law Tribunal against the company, seek a stay on the $200 million rights issue and a status quo on shareholding, accuse the company of not being transparent about plans and problems. Byju's argues investors are approaching the situation with an obstructive attitude, calls the allegations unfounded. Paytm founder Vijay Shekhar Sharma steps down from the reconstituted Paytm Payments Bank board. The new board to lead all future businesses for the bank. 4 new independent directors have been appointed and a chairman will be named soon. Sources add the board will focus squarely on compliance, plug regulatory lapses pointed out by the RBI. The move is meant to decouple Paytm Payments Bank from the parent entity. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman nudges corporate India to hike capex yet again, says industry must seize the opportunities thrown up by the government's capex-led growth. Adds next-gen reforms will top the agenda in the Modi government's third term. The Supreme Court issues contempt notices to Baba Ramdev's Patanjali Ayurveda and its managing director Acharya Balakrishna, bans the company from advertising products as medicinal, also restrains it from making statements against allopathic medicine. The notice does not involve the listed entity. Hinduja Group gets one step closer to taking over Reliance Capital. The NCLT approves a 9,800 crore rupee revival plan by Ind International Holdings, but Torrent Investments' plea challenging the plan is still pending in the Supreme Court. The 2-day BioAsia Summit kicks off in Hyderabad with Japan's Takeda Pharmaceutical partnering with Indian vaccine maker Biological E to boost manufacturing of Takeda's dengue vaccine. AstraZeneca says it will focus on building its innovative drug pipeline in the country as it looks to transform into an organization focused on treatments for specialty diseases. Parliamentary Affairs Minister Prahlad Joshi hints that top cabinet ministers Nirmala Sitharaman, S. Jaishankar and Piyush Goyal may be asked to contest in the upcoming Lok Sabha polls. The move is in keeping with BJP's plans to leverage the governance experience of key ministers in its campaign. None of them has ever contested a Lok Sabha election before. Advantage BJP in UP ahead of the elections for 10 Rajya Sabha seats. Samajwadi Party MLA Manoj Pandey resigns from the post of Chief Whip. Meets CM Yogi Adityanath along with 4 other MLAs, sparking the possibility of cross-voting. The BJP nominated 8 people in UP despite having the numbers for only 7 guaranteed wins. US President Joe Biden says he hopes for a 6-week ceasefire in Gaza by next Monday. Says the ceasefire will extend through the month of Ramadan and pave the way for the exchange of captives and the entry of critical aid into Gaza. India selects 4 astronauts for the Gaganyaan mission. Prime Minister Narendra Modi gives astronaut wings to Group Captains Prashant Balakrishnan Nair, Ajit Krishnan, Angad Pratap and Wing Commander Shubhanshu Shukla. 3 of them will go on a 3-day mission into a low Earth orbit. Artificial intelligence takes center stage as the Mobile World Congress kicks off in Spain. Tech developers and chip makers unveil a slew of AI-led products. HCL Tech's top executive tells CNBC TV 18 generative AI has grown from a tech play to a business play. Lenovo's transparent laptop and Gen AI-enabled robot capture the limelight. As always, let's start with the day's market action. Indices ending flat after a choppy session. Traded in a tight range today as weak global cues and a lack of specific domestic triggers prevented an all-out rally. So the Sensex and the Nifty closing 0.5% higher. The Sensex up by about 305 points. The Nifty gained about 76. The Nifty mid-cap was down by about 60-odd points. And the Nifty Bank absolutely flat today, but closing in the green. So that's the story as far as our markets are concerned. Surabhi standing by with some of the key highlights of today's trading action. Surabhi.
A very choppy day of trade, but one that finally saw the index end towards the higher end of the range rather than the lower end, so the bulls would be happy. We're talking about 140 points on the Nifty, but the final close was around that 22,200 mark. But trends were all over the place, and that was very well evidenced in the mid-cap market as well, where the advanced decline ratio was negative for the better part of the session. Auto stocks, that was the only one pocket where most stocks were higher than lower, be it Tata Motors, Eicher, Mahindra and Mahindra, they were all on the upside. But then let's talk about the split trends, and banks would be a classic example. Extremely choppy graph on the bank Nifty, but finally, because some of the private bank names were doing well, like IndusInd, we had a positive trend towards that as well. PSU banks were underperforming. SBI, Central Bank of India, IOB, all those names were on the downside. So what helped the Nifty by the end of it? A couple of the big boys. TCS was up and about on a positive brokerage note. Bharti had a good session, almost 2% higher, and L&T saw some green. So this ensured that we had a positive close on the index. PSUs, as I said, mixed trends going all over the place. The PSU banks were down. There were stocks like REC that didn't perform too well today. NMDC saw some cool off. But then you had an SJVN, 4-5% higher. You had a RailTel, which was doing extremely well. Just some stocks in focus and stocks that were hitting the headlines. ICICI Lombard, where the parent bank is increasing its stake. So that stock almost was 5% higher. Cello World reacting very favorably to a Motilal Oswal note, which was 4% higher. And Havells, once again, it was brokerage commentary that took this stock up as well. All in all, the market seems to be in a bit of a pause mode because global markets are also awaiting further cues and direction after the Nvidia's inspired rally on Wall Street. It's all going to be about US inflation, and we'll have more clarity on that when that data comes out towards the latter half of the week. But right now, range bound is what we saw on the street here.
All right, Sudip, many thanks for joining us. Paytm founder Vijay Shekhar Sharma has stepped down from the reconstituted Paytm Payments Bank board. He resigned as a part-time non-executive chairman, and this comes ahead of the March 15 deadline to wind down the Paytm Payments Bank business. As part of the overall, 4 new independent directors have been appointed to the new board. A new chairman will also be named soon. Sources tell us that the board will focus on resolving compliance issues and plugging the regulatory lapses pointed out by the RBI. Speaking of startups in India that are in trouble, 4 investors in edtech startup Byju's have moved the National Company Law Tribunal against the company. Among other things, their petition seeks to declare the company's $200 million rights issue as void and enforce a status quo on shareholding. Now, these 4 investors have also accused the company of not being transparent about plans or problems. However, Byju's calls these allegations unfounded. Ritu's standing by now to take us through the key arguments made by both sides at the NCLT today. Ritu.
Well, Shireen, it's a high-stakes battle brewing between the founders and investors of Byju's. The Bengaluru bench of NCLT today hearing the oppression and mismanagement suit that was filed by the investors against the Byju's management. Remember, this has been filed by 4 investors, Prosus, General Atlantic, Safina and Peak 15, along with support from other shareholders, which includes your Tiger Global, Owl Ventures and others. Primarily, they're seeking a stay on the $200 million rights issue, a status quo on the shareholding structure, declare the current management unfit to run the company, revamp the board, appoint a forensic auditor and so on. Now, these investors, which were represented by Arima Sundaram and Sudipta Sarkar as counsels, argued in the court that the process itself that was adopted for the rights issue was in breach of laws and shares were issued without increasing the authorized share capital. The Investors' Council even argued that Think and Learn is only thinking and learning how to bypass the Companies Act and create issues. They also sought that the court defer the issue immediately and appoint an independent observer to attend board meetings so nothing untoward happens in the investors' absence. They claimed that as large shareholders, they've been kept in the dark by the current management. For instance, they found out about the IBC proceedings through newspapers. They found out about the ED notices when the 3rd summon was issued to them, and that Byju's is expecting investors to invest more money in the company in this situation, with investors being between the devil and the deep sea, where if they participate in the rights issue, they won't even know where the money is going, and if they don't, their shareholding will fall sharply. Arguing that their investments were in danger, they've sought a stay on founders transferring any shares in the company at all. Now, Byju's, on the other hand, still continuing to argue as we speak that while the investors have admitted that the company is in dire need of funds, they're now seeking to stop all sources from which the company can raise money. They've hit back saying that investors were very happy when the company was doing well, and now they're calling its decisions wrong. They argued that allegations of non-transparency are unfounded, that they issued notices to the investors about this rights issue and the board meetings, and if investors don't want to stay invested, they don't have confidence, they can choose not to subscribe to the issue.
Well, we'll have to see how this ends. Ritu, many thanks for joining us. As Ritu pointed out, the proceedings are underway at the NCLT. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman urging corporate India to hike capital expenditure yet again. Addressing a session organised by FICCI, the Finance Minister said industry must seize the opportunities thrown up by the government's capex-led growth strategy, also adding that next-gen reforms will top the agenda of the Modi government in its 3rd term.
Government is showing its commitment by ramping up expenditure, capital expenditure. I would appeal to the industry, standing on a FICCI platform. Indian industry can now surely move forward with a great speed. It is time for Indian industry also to join in this game in a big way, and look for, if necessary, for technology or any other reason, look for greater joint venture partners around the world for whom India is attractive, and I'm sure it is attractive for you in the first place. We are at a juncture in India's history where it is just all opportunities and it is for us to grab it.
Well, that's the finance minister reiterating the government's message to industry: pick up on private sector investment. The National Company Law Tribunal has verbally approved the Hinduja Group's 10,000 crore rupee revival plan for Reliance Capital. Now, this paves the way for the Hinduja promoted Indocent International Holdings to take over the bankrupt company. However, the Supreme Court is scheduled to hear Torrent Investments' plea that challenges IIHL's resolution plan for Reliance Capital. Amazon Pay has received a payment aggregator's license from the Reserve Bank. This will enable the entity to offer merchant payment services through its app. The company already has a prepaid payment instrument license to operate its wallet services. Whirlpool CEO Mark Bitzer has said the company remains bullish on India and has no plans to leave the Indian market. In an interview with CNBC, Bitzer added that the 24% stake sale in the Indian arm was done due to higher valuations and called the move an asset arbitrage. Listen in.
We're not leaving India. So first of all, to put it in context, we kind of divested a big part of our China business. We sold Russia. We acquired the very attractive InSinkerator business in Wisconsin. And India, we basically took our share down to 51%. It was, frankly, I mean, we believe in India in the long term.